Anyways, but we should dive in. Let's do it. Are we?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, Jeff, I want to thank you very much for spending this lovely evening with me. We're going to delve into the very history, the very issue of the masks, the most, I think, popular campaign of the whole Call of Cthulhu scenarios. Yeah, this
but
one
wait,
exactly.
Wait,
this is
Mary,
the 7th edition.
I tried to find my original
God.
box set, but my box set is in storage.
Oh yes, I remember that cover.
So,
actually, this is the first one I actually played in my childhood.
What, this one?
This one, because it was the first masks that was published in Poland by the publishing house called Mag in Polish. And
okay, so Mary, for me, this is always
this was the first time I read it.
This one.
Okay,
and this,
all right.
And this one is
for me 1990s. Yeah, it's exactly
nice and huge and beautiful.
Yeah, definitely the most beautiful, and actually, but first edition of the masks was actually published in 1984, as far as I remember.
So. I believe it's the seventh.
And now we have, we have the 7th edition, and
I mean, masks
including the pulp style.
It's up there as one of the 3 greatest RPG campaigns of all time, and in my opinion, it's that for Chaosium, Larry did masks. He did some Elric stuff, but the other amazing campaign he wrote was a Pendragon campaign, which was also very, very different from masks, but also up there as one of the greatest campaigns of all time. The Grey Knight. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah. I remember we were talking and discussing it during the PAX session. I remember David Larkins, I guess, the most dedicated author and the most dedicated fan of Pendragon.
I hope so, because David's our Pendragon line manager. But Larry, the thing about what Larry put together on all of these was that his background was as a producer and screenwriter, and everything that he did had the sensibility of a movie or a television series. And so you play masks, and it has that feeling. And I'm sure you want to go into this further, but it has that feeling of these amazing pulp stories of and pulp television series of the movie series of the 1930s, where you have these episodes, and every episode ends on an exciting cliffhanger. So, and then it goes to the next
TV series style,
and it has this feeling, same thing for what he did with Grey Knight, similar thing. But let's focus on his masterpiece, which was not Babylon 5 or She-Ra. Although I love She-Ra and I love Babylon 5, but man, Maskach Nyarlathothepa was his masterpiece. It is an amazing piece of writing.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree. And, we're going to delve into that very depth of history. I'd like to ask you about the beginnings of Larry DiTillio and Chaosium, because it was in the very 1980s when his adventure with Chaosium actually started. Yeah. So I heard he actually, this is a fun fact, he actually agreed to work with Chaosium because he was promised, among others, of course, the Call of Cthulhu.
It was a song and dance. He agreed to work for a
How was
song
it from your perspective?
I was looking at the old files. I mean, Larry was an amazing guy, and so he wasn't looking at. He wrote this, and I actually think this is one of the most amazing things that has ever been written as a serial. But he wrote it, and his payment was practically nothing. It was the book. It was Call of Cthulhu, a little bit of money, and the right to do anything he wanted to do with it.
I remember that the whole campaign of Masks was supposed to be a one-shot.
Yes.
And just then, when
it was
when
definitely
Larry
supposed to be, because up until Masks, everything was much shorter than Cthulhu. I think Sandy's Yog-Sothoth, I'm spacing on the full name of it, but Sandy also wrote a world-spanning campaign where you were up against the Brotherhood of the Beast, or Shadows of Yog-Sothoth. I think are the two names of the campaign's been published under. But, those had been up until then the biggest high concept campaigns. Masks was supposed to be more like those. And instead, Larry came up with this thing that was, keep in mind, the original printing of it, they threw away the Australia chapter because they were like, well, that's too big. We can't do games that big.
Yes, I heard that.
But it had New York, it had London, it had Egypt, it had Hong Kong, it had Australia, it had Dragon Island, it had Kenya. I mean, I believe at the British East Africa. I mean, amazing. And, that's 1980, it was what, 84, right?
84, yeah.
So that's
Lots
coming
of
right on the
areas to
heels
discover,
of Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was 1980, I think, 81 that Raiders came out.
Yes.
And the idea of doing this multiple locations, world straddling game. No one had ever done anything like this. And I still don't think anybody's done anything as good as Masks with that.
Yep, but what about the horror at the Orient Express? Because to be honest, this is actually my favorite one. I played it once, I ran it 2 times, I read it a lot more times, and although there's some
which is a great
at some points,
come on, Mary, that's not fair.
I don't want to push
I don't want to be in a place where I have to say who's greater, Mark Morrison or Larry DiTillio.
Yeah, no. I don't want to push you.
But horror is smaller. Horror is an Agatha Christie's tale. Yes. It's you're there with Hercule Poirot going on the Orient Express between Paris and Istanbul, Constantinople. But Masks, that's Raiders of the Lost Ark. That is.
Yeah, this is called,
when you play it. When I don't know, have you played Masks?
I didn't complete it yet, but I played it, and we were going into the more pulp style, right? Now I can say it was pulp. Then I would call
I'll play in it. That's a game.
Right?
That's one of the few campaigns that, even though I've read the book, I've edited the book, I've played it twice, I've run it once.
I wanted to ask you, how many times did you play?
I will play that. I will play that over and over and over again, because Masks. It's like Raiders. It doesn't matter if you know the storyline, because it's bigger than the plot. It's bigger than the story. It is. You have all this crazy stuff going on. But whenever I play it, I just imagine those lines. In a Raiders of the Lost Ark, when the plane goes across the Pacific Ocean, you imagine that in Masks as your plane goes from New York City to London or to Cairo, and the little lines showing up on the map. Yeah. I mean, to me, that is the pinnacle of role-playing in a modern setting.
Yeah, when you can actually shoot the great Cthulhu in the face, man, it's awesome. Yeah, but did you actually play it in the pulp style? Because you've said for you pulp is Indiana Jones.
I've never played.
Is this the very essence of
with
pulp?
Cthulhu? I would love to, but Pulp Cthulhu, which is awesome and wonderful is basically designed for masks. Because one of the problems with, if you play masks with the traditional Call of Cthulhu, you go through party members like, you know, just people die like flies in certain parts of it because it's a pulp campaign.
Yeah.
And it literally is a pulp campaign, not as in it's like set up for a different rule system, but it's based around those pulp adventure stories of the 1930s. And to me, that is
similar to Penny
is
Dreadfuls.
The single greatest Call of Cthulhu campaign ever done. But it owes the least to Lovecraft. It's the least Lovecraftian of all of the major campaigns because it's Indiana Jones. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think you and I have talked about that before. But to me, Call of Cthulhu often operates on this seesaw between Lovecraft and horror and Stephen King and
Edgar Allan Poe.
You know, very psychological horror. What?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, Edgar Allan Poe. And then
Arthur Machen.
Arthur Machen.
The Great God Pan.
The Great God Pan, and so forth. But then it's got, to me, just as important, and I know this is high controversy, and I apologize, Mike, for saying this, but it's got also Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's got Indiana Jones, and that's the pulp side of that. And you know, I don't know how familiar you are with Raiders. I'm sure you've seen.
With Raiders, actually, I used to be a great fan, but honestly, last time I watched it was like about 50 years ago.
Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark is, in my opinion, one of the three or four most perfect movies ever made. And it hits this. So for role playing, you've got a thing where you've got a normal person, but he's a pulp hero. Indy is a pulp hero. You know, he's tougher than everybody else, but he gets beaten up. Again, tying into Pulp Cthulhu, he's fragile, but he's still tough enough to deal with many foes. He travels around the world. He is investigating this strange occult event. And he goes, in the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, he goes from the United States to Nepal to Cairo to some weird Greek island, all around the world.
All around the world.
And that is very much the feeling of Masks of Nyarlathotep. And what Pulp Cthulhu lets you do is it lets you play in that Indiana Jones style and not die miserably. And I would love to play Masks again using the pulp rules. Maybe then I would actually play only 1 or 2 characters instead of like 5 or 6.
That's an idea, actually. Yeah, that may be helpful. But considering that 2-in-1 style, 2-in-1 idea where pulp meets classic Cthulhu. This solution was introduced first and so far the only time in the newest version of the masks. And I'd like to ask you, why was it converted?
Yes.
Are you going to introduce those 2 play styles in every bigger campaign of Cthulhu?
No, because, okay, so the reason that we put it into Masks is a pulp game. It owes so much to that. And when I talk about pulp, it is that serial style adventure from the 1930s, early 1940s U.S. pulp novels. So Doc Savage, but it's also things like not Buck Rogers. Flash Gordon is very much pulp, or you have these 30-minute to 1 hour serial shows that go and they follow a particular plot line of, you go in, you're trying to deal with a mystery, you try to solve it, you have this obstacle, you kind of overcome the obstacle, and then there's a cliffhanger. And then you go on to the next session.
TV series. Yeah, this is yeah, exactly.
And Masks is very much that. And the problem is that Masks is not really Lovecraftian. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Masks is
I agree
very
with that, definitely.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
There's some horror elements to it, but you're on this huge, this not this small mystery, but this world-spanning mystery that has you going to places and sometimes getting in gunfights and brawls and such, and you want to play the same character through all of this. And it's not realistic in the sense that a normal Call of Cthulhu is. I'm a university professor. I'm really good at translating, ancient languages and holy
skill
smokes,
of using the library.
Yeah. Whereas
skill of using the library
Masks,
assets.
You're playing a person that goes in and they're gonna go and they're gonna deal with things in Cairo and in East Africa and all over the world. They're gonna get in gunfights. It's gonna be exciting and adventurous, and maybe they'll die.
Yeah.
But it should be a little bit tougher to die in that, because they're going to be doing so many stupid heroic things in a Masks campaign that you want to have a rule system that supports that.
Well, speaking of action all around the world, I'd like to move into this multicultural topic when discussing the Masks, because we have Cairo, New York, London, all of those big and smaller cities and countries to explore, right? But do you know, I'm sure you do, the Polish appendix or introduction to the Masks written by Adam Wieczorek, 2 out of thousands it's called. Is this a sort of unique material? Because considering the idea that Adam gives there are Polish investigators who can join the Carlisle expedition.
Right, because it's tied in with the Polish archaeological expeditions into Egypt. Yeah. Adam and I talked about that. I thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, I know he's in the process of testing it.
Well, are you going to run? Mary, are you going to run it?
Well, it's not fair. You've got a lot of witnesses here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it. Mary's going to run it. She's going to be running a Masks campaign for us all.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Once it's published, I'd like to do it with pleasure.
But this is one of the things. This is one of the great things in the upcoming Polish edition is that Adam has really worked on. Okay. In the American version of this, the assumption is, your friends of Jackson Elias, in New York, etc. And if you're a Polish player, it's cool to have a Polish angle on this. And Adam's done a great job coming up with that, because there was so much during the brief period of Polish independence. There was so much Polish archaeology being done in the Middle East that Adam was telling me about it. I was like, and I told him, run wild with it. That's awesome.
But what about the other countries? Because there are many fictional cultural aspects of Nyarlathotep, like Black Pharaoh in Egypt, China with the giant women. What other country where the masks are published is going to be most interesting for you, actually? Which mythology? Which country that
well, I would really love it if
include
the
local
French,
aspects.
because there'll be a new French edition at some point, and because France as well had such a archaeological involvement in Egypt. I would love for Edge to be playing around with some cool additional material. But the Poles are Mary, you all are trailblazers. I mean, maybe the Japanese.
Good to hear that.
But I can't. I mean, I love the the Japanese Call of Cthulhu material is incredible and awesome, but I can't read it.
Yeah, same here. But Madame Yi, as far as I remember, yes, definitely, it's great. It's worth reading and worth taking into account. But is this multicultural?
Well, okay, so there's the Spanish are playing around with one, which is more of an expansion of. It's not a direct expansion of masks, but it's a tie-in to masks around Cairo of the period. And Cairo in the 1920s was amazing. You know, it had, Winston Churchill was in Cairo. You have all these famous historical figures coming in through this. At the same time, you've got the King Tut dig going on. You have all of this archaeological material. And the Poles are the first ones to really play around with it, but I've seen there will be at some point, I can't give out too many details on it, but the Spanish have also an amazing, and the writer is absolutely, Mary, this is one we have to play, because the writer who does this is unbelievable. And absolutely unbelievable. But that's it. It's the Poles and the Spaniards.
Great to hear that. Actually, that we are a part of that.
You guys aren't doing it. Mein Deutsche Freunde. Again, come on, guys, up the game. Come on.
Take it into account, guys. Yeah. But to sum up the first part of our lovely chat and interview, would you say, did the Masks campaign contribute to make some exotic countries interesting? Like, did it popularize among players to set their adventures in, for example, Africa? Or are there more like African-oriented scenarios at the Miskatonic repository? What's your opinion on that?
Well, Masks has been around for so long. I would say what Masks did is it opened up Cthulhu to a broader setting than Northeast United States. Prior to that, it had all been really focused on really kind of the Lovecraftian take on it. Even Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, even though it's world-spanning, it's kind of that world-spanning that you could imagine maybe Lovecraft would play around with. I think San Francisco is in on it. They go to Relay. But, you don't play around with different cultures in the same way. And Masks opened that up. And I think the Kenya or the British East African section really opened up with the idea of universalizing Call of Cthulhu. So you start having stuff taking place, not just in Massachusetts, but it's now, or in Egypt, but places like
all around the world,
Kenya or in Hong Kong, etc. And people have run with that for the last 30, 40 years with it. I mean, there was a fan Masks expansion about, 5-6 years ago that was kind of a precursor of the Miskatonic repository material. People love doing stuff associated with Masks. I'm sure I've now lost your original question.
I can't imagine that. Well, yeah, I'm happy with your answer. But Jeff, I guess we're gonna stop here as for the first part. Thank you very much for being here and for spending this lovely evening with me, as I said at the beginning. So, see you next week, where there will be more exciting fan facts and valuable news about the Masks. Take care. Cheers.